As an entrepreneur, you need a vision. You need a sense of where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years. What is your company going to do? What value is it going to create in society? Where are you headed? You have to have that long-term vision, especially because you cannot expect anyone else to come into your business and give it the same love, attention, and hard work that you're putting into it.
It's like a new skill. You have to learn how to teach somebody something. So like just teaching them how to clean the couch or teaching them how we secure the couch on the truck, just little things that you wouldn't think are hard, but then when you actually try to sit there and explain it.
And so you have 10 employees, 15 employees. All of a sudden, the highest leverage use of your time is no longer working in the business. You have, like, why do you have 10 employees if you're going to continue to do all of those tasks? It doesn't make sense. You have to start delegating, and you have to remove yourself from the operations, and you have to hand over the operations of the business to your employees and manage them. And that requires Hey Colin, thanks for hopping on to the Couch Pod with me. Why don't you give our viewers a little introduction?
Yeah, I'm Collin Westscott. I'm from Dallas, Texas, or Plano. If you actually live here, you'll know where that is. But yeah, I'm the owner of Renew Furniture. We are a couch flipping and used furniture business in Plano, and yeah, that's really it.
Cool. So Renew Furniture, it's you and your dad, right?
Okay, so my dad is mostly just like he just helped me with the startup costs and like he'll help me sometimes when I need, but it's mostly just me and then one employee.
Okay, cool. And when did you get into the flipping game?
Well, I was part-time. I did like part-time for like a year, but like full-time with Renew Furniture for about a year now.
Okay, great. And how are things going?
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. I mean, if you want me to get into numbers, probably like 20 to 25,000 a month in sales, anywhere from like 7 to 12K in profit a month.
That's really good. So you're consistently hitting revenue numbers 20, 25K month over month.
Yeah, there's been a couple outliers, but like generally it's in that range.
Mhm. What has been the hardest part for you as you've been growing this business and trying to up your revenue?
I would just say there's been a couple, but I would say the main thing would be like just finding consistent labor and just finding reliable people to help me so that I can kind of get out of the more easily like replicatable tasks like picking up and delivering and focusing on the things that are really going to drive revenue like sales, marketing, and sourcing.
Do you have a long-term goal for the business? Like where are you looking to take things?
So we are actually in the process of buying another business that has, I would say, more brand recognition, better like SEO, search engine optimization, and just some things that strategically would probably take like a year to get in place that I could just bypass that by buying them since they're moving on to something else. But long-term vision, I think we're going to try and go like the franchise route and see if we can, replicate the process in multiple locations and let others take part in that.
Interesting. And I think I might know who that business might be.
Yeah, I think you probably do.
Yeah. So very very interesting that you guys are, now coming together and having that conversation. Yeah, super cool. And you guys have a brick and mortar as well, right?
Yeah, we have a warehouse, like office space. It's like there's just like one small office and then about 2,300 square feet of warehouse space, give or take.
And does that operate as like a showroom for you guys?
Yeah, we use it as like a showroom. We kind of have it like partitioned off where like this stuff that's not cleaned and ready yet is kind of behind this little divider, and then about 1,800 square feet of like legit like showroom.
Hmm. So you have one full-time employee,
Yeah.
and obviously when you started out, maybe it was just you, some help from your dad, and now like you're thinking about how to step away from the business, plug other people in. What has been like some of the more challenging aspects around that?
So with any business, there's like fixed costs and variable costs, right? So like with the one employee, it makes sense financially. But now if I start thinking about a second employee, does it pay for itself? You know what I mean? So there's a point where having a second person and paying them, maybe 2,500 to 3K a month would be worth it. I don't think we're quite there yet. So what I've been doing is using like gig apps to kind of supplement when I need someone else besides me to go do the physical work of moving, delivering, picking up. And that has gotten kind of expensive using apps like GoShare and Dolly to, pay 50, 60 bucks at a time just to have someone show up somewhere and do 10 minutes of work. So that's probably been the biggest challenge I've had scaling is trying to catch up the sales enough to pay for another person or get the gig cost down to make it where I don't need another person.
Right. Sometimes, as a business owner, when you look at how much you're spending on salary, I have this problem too. You start to wonder, are they working for me or am I working for them?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of both, right? You have to take care of your people so that they can show up and do a good job for you. And at times that means, let's say the cash flow isn't where you want it to be, you have to take that hit.
Yeah.
And that is the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, being an employer. I know that you have started to work on a labor solution to try and fill this hole, and we'll definitely get to that. But before that, I know that this is a common issue that a lot of couch flippers face when they think about, how do I start working on my business instead of working in my business? And you'd be surprised at the number of people I talk to. They all have this goal. They want to turn their couch flipping business into a system, but making this jump from them doing all the pickups, them doing all the cleaning, all the listing, all the sourcing is extremely difficult. It's because when you're doing it yourself, you don't have to pay yourself, right? You just, whatever money you make in the business goes into your pocket. And so you have a much healthier profit margin. But as soon as you start incorporating the labor of other people, what was like $400 gross profit turns into like $150 net profit per flip. And normally that maybe the margin there was much better, right? So when you make $400 gross profit on a flip, 300 of that is your net profit,
Right.
because you're doing all the work. And so the important thing there is to figure out the model, right? So let's say you're only making 150 net profit per flip. Well, you have to do a lot more flips in order to make up that difference. And it sounds like that's something that, problem that you're encountering, not with the first employee necessarily, but with the second one. It's like, I could bring in a second person to my operation, and yes, let's say it's more automated, but then I have to, make up for that somehow in sales.
Exactly. And it's a substantial jump. Like I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but to like make up for the first employee, we had to sell 12 to 15 more couches in a month or somewhere in that range to even just break even on the first employee. I think it was 12, but yeah. So that's an extra, like 3 a week, which is not a crazy amount, but it's definitely something.
You can feel the pressure, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then you like hire the guy, and then coincidentally, there's a bad week somehow the first week, and then you like really start feeling the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but over time, that those kind of things like flatten out and become more consistent, I would say.
You know what it is? It's when you have one employee, two employees, those people are coming in and they're helping you. They're assisting you, but you're still the primary executor in the business. But as soon as your business starts to scale beyond that, let's say you have 10 employees, 15 employees, all of a sudden, the highest leverage use of your time is no longer working in the business, right? You have, like, why do you have 10 employees if you're going to continue to do all of those tasks? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so you have to start delegating, and you have to remove yourself from the operations, and you have to hand over the operations of the business to your employees and manage them. And that requires having really good systems, right? Everything written down. Here's how we inspect the couch. Here's how we clean. Here's our delivery policy.
It's not something you think about until you have to explain to someone else. Like you think it's intuitive because you've done it so much, and then when you hire the other person, you're like, oh, it's not intuitive. I have to explain it in detail. Like, yeah, definitely best to write it down so they can go back and refer to it.
Yeah, I just came across this. Like, we were working with some couch flippers out in New York City, and these are good, hardworking guys, smart too. But they had these massive plans for expansion. They're like, we want to take over this market, this market, this market, etc. But I think the problem that they're running into is their processes were not that tight. So they stepped away. They traveled for a little bit and tried to manage everything remotely. And that's when things started to, the walls started to cave in on them because it wasn't clear how they were operating. And they were saying, what we want is to find the right people, and the right people are going to know what to do. They're going to know how to hustle, and they're just going to figure it out.
Yeah.
We really can't rely on that, right? You need better documentation. You need a way that you operate, and all of that needs to be clear and written down, especially because you cannot expect anyone else to come into your business and give it the same love, attention, and hard work that you're putting into it. So my rule of thumb is that if I can do something in the business and I'm competent at it, maybe someone can come in, they're more skilled, but they're probably not going to care as much. And that does make a difference when times get rough. And maybe that difference is like 20, 30%. And it makes sense because, as the business owner, you have the most to lose, you have the most to gain. Of course, you're going to care more. And you don't necessarily want someone to come in who's just looking for a paycheck, but that's the nature of an employee. And it's a lesson that I've learned somewhat in a hard way because, whenever I walked into any business in the past myself, I always had this like ownership mentality. So even if I wasn't an owner in the business, that's the vigor with which I approached my work. And I expected that mentality to be the same in everyone that I brought on as an employee. And yeah, I've learned the hard way a couple times that, maybe that's not a fair expectation. Now, a really good hire is going to have more of that mentality, but even so, you can't expect them to be willing to make the same level of sacrifice that you are to push your business forward. And so the smart thing to do is to account for that and build a system in which they can operate and, have peace of mind, get fulfillment out of their work in life, and then you get value out of that as well. So it's really stepping into the shoes of an architect as you think about scaling your business. When I say that, I don't mean that like as the business owner, we're going to be the best at everything we do, right? Like, for example, I have engineers.
Yeah.
And I don't code. And so any engineering tasks that they do, they're doing almost 100% better
Yeah.
than I could do, or at least 90% better, let's say, because my engineering is like 0. But what I mean is, when things get tough, when they're like the system is throwing bugs or errors and it's the weekend, everything is crashing down, you can't have the expectation that they're going to be willing to jump on that in the same way that you might, because they have other things going on. And that's fair. That's totally fair. It was hard for me to wrap my head around it at first until I sat down with like one of my teammates, this is probably a couple months ago, and we were talking about him leveling up within our organization. And the big thing I kept emphasizing to him is like, I need you to step up like a partner to me in this business because, the transitions that are happening, and this is, more work, but it's an opportunity at the same time. I need you to have an owner's mentality. And he's like, well, how can I have an owner's mentality when I'm not an owner? And at first it boggled my mind. I was like, what do you mean? Like, you don't have to necessarily be an owner to have an owner's mentality. And also, if you come to the table with that mentality and you're really valuable to the business, you'll increase your share of equity in the company. He already had equity in the company.
Well, then he is technically an owner.
He is an owner, right? So like that's what like really boggled my mind because I didn't get it, right? Like I personally don't operate that way. But after, talking about it with some friends and like really thinking about what he said, like I came to understand things from his perspective. So a lot of the time when this is happening, it's easy to entrench and say like, I have the correct way of thinking and, they don't think this way, therefore they're wrong. And really it behooves you to look at things from their perspective instead and understand what they're saying. You don't have to agree necessarily, and you don't have to live your life according to those principles, but you have to understand. And it's that understanding that makes you a good leader and a good manager. So you can see their point of view and you can design the system around their point of view. What has been your hardest challenge other than affording the extra employee, just in terms of like managing the, additional people that are coming into your business to help you?
I mean, probably just what we already talked about with the kind of, you assume that they know how to do something, but you really have to show them how to do it. And then, sometimes you have to, it's like a new skill. You have to learn how to teach somebody something. So like just teaching them how to clean the couch or teaching them how we secure the couch on the truck, just little things that you wouldn't think are hard. But then when you actually try to sit there and explain it, it's like, I don't have a formula for how you do this. So I need to write it down and just kind of go through my own process of how I would do it because it's intuitive to me at this point. But I need to present it in a way to them that would make it to where they can get to that point of it being intuitive to them.
So like when it comes to cleaning, for example, do you have a process now?
Yeah, now I have like a written down process of how to do it. But at first it was just like muscle memory. Like I was just doing it.
What areas of the business do you have written down processes for?
Yeah, so I should probably get better about this. But posting things on Facebook versus the website, since the description is a little bit different, cleaning couches, putting diluting the solution that we use to clean the couch. Those are the only ones that I can honestly say I have written down.
Hey, look, that's a really good start. A lot of people in the same time frame that you've been in business have nothing written down. So, and that's really where it starts. Like it doesn't, and what I've realized too over time, it doesn't have to be overly complex. It just has to be written down.
Yeah.
Could take something as simple as sourcing on Marketplace. So we have like VAs now that are sourcing deals on Marketplace. And at first I was doing it. So I was looking for the couches myself. And there's a lot of things that I was doing implicitly in like evaluating deals and then negotiating with the sellers that I totally took for granted. Right. So what are the things that you need to check for ahead of time? Is this a walk up? Is this an elevator building? Is there damage? Are there tears? Are there stains? Are there odors? How old is it? Is there a tag? Right? And that's just sort of like a prerequisite to figuring out if we want to go pick it up. Oftentimes, in our eagerness to secure a deal, we'll just look at the photo and be like, all right, I want that, right? Here's an offer. We're going to come get it right now. And that might work if it's your own labor. But if you don't check for these things as you're scaling your org, it leads to problems. And now it's other people's time. You're paying for that. So those mistakes are a lot more costly. And then how do you negotiate, right? How do you get a seller who posts a sectional for $500 down to $200, right? And this is not just something that you can hustle at. It takes some skill. It takes some finesse. And so that whole process of reaching out to people and securing deals, something that we had to train other people to do. And maybe like the first person or two you can get away with just doing it off the cuff. They shadow you or you observe what they're doing, you give them like feedback, but that's not scalable at all, right? And that also creates opportunities for errors. It's like they don't have a checklist, so maybe they forget. But if you train them and you give them that checklist, now they know if they don't check for damage or something like that they're not doing their job correctly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Out of curiosity, where did you find your VAs? Because that's something I've been looking into.
Yeah, so I used to live in Mexico. During the pandemic, I was there for about a year and a half. I lived in this town called Playa del Carmen. It's in between Cancun and Tulum, like 1 hour south of Cancun, 1 hour north of Tulum. And it's a cool town. It's very touristic. The population of the town is about 300,000 people. And the whole town is walkable. And there are a lot of expats that were holed up there during the pandemic. And, it's nice. It's tropical weather. There's a beach. I can see why people want to live there. And the cost of living is generally lower. But I think for a lot of expats, when they get there, they sort of have this idea that they might be able to find a job while they're there. Well, there's like employment restrictions. You have to go register with the government and get your work permit. And also just the availability of jobs is not very good. So if you're coming from Canada or the US, do you really want to work for Mexican minimum wage?
Yeah.
Like $10 a day.
Oh, wow.
And be like a server at a restaurant? Or do you want to go, and this is a common thing, people try to get into selling timeshares. It's all commission. They get into real estate, it's all commission. And yeah, you can make money doing it, but you really need to have a mindset, like a long-term mindset to be successful at that, just as you would if you were trying to sell real estate in America. So knowing that, there's this big expat community, people are looking for ways to make money, like US dollars in a foreign country, where that goes a lot further for them. So, I had that context, I had some connections, there were a couple of Facebook groups that I was a part of. And so I started posting in there. I probably filtered through like 100 applications. A lot of these people don't even have resumes, right?
Yeah.
But in that process, I was able to find a couple gems. People they were not from Mexico, but they're living in Mexico. They're looking for a way to make online dollars, US money. And, I'm paying 8 times the Mexican minimum wage.
Oh, wow. Are they working like full-time hours, you think? Or is it like, are they able to even get other work in addition, you think?
So I hire them full-time hours. So each of them is getting paid salary for 40 hours a week. I pay them semi-monthly. So on the 1st and 15th of every month, they get a paycheck. There's no timesheet or anything like that. So, frankly, they're finding couches on Facebook Market, and they're finding couches on Facebook Marketplace, and they're selling them, right? And they can do that on their phone. I'm not the kind of boss where you need to be at your computer at this time. I'm going to use eye tracking software
Yeah.
to figure out if you're there or not. So they're relatively free to manage their time, manage their lives as they want. But at the same time, like, I have expectations. I have quota, right? I need you to source a certain amount of deals. I need you to sell a certain amount of couches. And as long as you're hitting your numbers, I'm not going to get involved. And, in order to do the job as well. So the way our system works, we have started flipping couches, but we partner with flippers in order to do it. So, we are like a web interface on top of the flipper. We're a consumer interface on top of the flipper. So if you want to sell a couch, you come to Ivy. And then if you want to buy a couch, you come to Ivy. And that could be on our website, that could be on our marketplace profiles, whatever. But you're interacting with Ivy. But behind the scenes, it's all flippers. So once we find the deal, we send the flipper to go grab it, and then they pick it up, they clean it, they store it, they take photos, and then we sell the couch, and then the flipper delivers it.
Okay, that makes sense.
So we're doing all of the work that can be, done in an office or done digitally, and then we are building technology to support this entire workflow. And then the flippers can just focus on like the things that they normally would, but with a lot less stress. They don't have to worry about like scheduling, customer service, logistics. They pick up the couch, they clean it, they post it, or they clean it, they take photos, we post it for them, and then the flipper gets the majority of the revenue.
Okay. Yeah, because I know a lot of people, they have multiple accounts that they use for Facebook Marketplace, and it makes sense because two accounts could post the same couch at the same time, and then one could get 100 clicks the first hour and one could get 2 clicks the first hour, and it's seemingly random. Like, I'm sure there's some rhyme or reason to it, but it does seem to have a degree of randomness, which in any time in business, you want to eliminate randomness, obviously. So I was definitely looking into using a VA for, I was just going to make like another Facebook account and then have them post on that, I guess, if they're in another country with a VPN. But the biggest issue I was running into was finding ones that knew English, like not kind of, but actually fluent in English. But I guess what you mentioned would be a pretty good solution to that.
Yeah, and look, it wasn't easy, right? Like, first of all, you could outsource to the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the big VA hub, and in the Philippines they speak English. And I've used VAs from the Philippines before. I have like 2 or 3 that I always go back to. The problem is they're 12 hours ahead, and they need to be active during normal U.S. business hours, 9 to 5, roughly, right?
Right.
So having our VAs be from Latin America was an advantage in that they operate on our time zone. Playa del Carmen right now, it's 11:50 a.m. In New York. Right now, it's 11:50 a.m. So we're synced up in that regard. The other thing is it took time. Like, at this point, I have 3 months worth of salary, training, and investment put into these VAs. And I had to, start with a pile of like 100 VA applications to find the 2 that I like.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my goals in going to Mexico on Tuesday. I think I mentioned this to you. Yeah, I'm flying to Mexico on Tuesday, is to work with those VAs a little bit more hands-on, and also, plant some seeds to see who the next VAs are going to be, assuming that we continue in this direction and, try to scale our flipping business.
Definitely. That makes sense. So, yeah, I bet you a lot of the same people look on places like Upwork and Fiverr for that kind of job, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. You can find VAs on Upwork and Fiverr. I haven't sourced VAs through there. I've sourced other types of labor. I think on those platforms, they tend to be a little bit more specialized. So it's like if you're on Upwork, you do video editing, or maybe you do, software engineer. So it's a little bit more skilled labor. And then the platform is involved. And then the people that are really good, right, they sort of built a business for themselves on those platforms. But yeah, I don't know. Your mileage could vary. You might be able to find some good leads on Fiverr and Upwork, but there's that whole situation of removing the platform that you have to navigate as well, which is probably a good segue into what you're doing with the gig app. So you have been parsing out some of labor in your business using gig apps, GoShare, Dolly, etc. And you're trying to figure out how to do the same thing, which is remove the middleman, remove these platforms, and get direct access to your gig laborers, and to mediate that with technology. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, the impetus for, actually, why don't you start with what you were trying to get gig laborers to do, like what you needed help with from gig workers, and then how that led you to this idea of developing your own platform.
Okay, so it started with I hurt my back, so I wasn't able to lift couches for a couple of weeks because it was pretty bad, but I needed to be able to continue the business, obviously. So I was going to spend what I had to spend to, continue and at least make something. So I would have these gig workers just meet my full-time employees at the location and pick up the item. I would just have them go to one location, pick up the item, and then we would get it back to the warehouse, and I could kind of help them get it off the truck because it's a little bit easier when you have the truck and you're just using it to prop up the couch. But long story short, I charged $52, and they would just meet the guy there, pick up or deliver the couch, and then yeah, that would be that. So I'd pay them $52 for like 10 minutes of work, and they would only get paid like 37 or 38 of that because the platform took the fee. And on top of that, those platforms have so many more workers than they have jobs that they literally have to swipe on the job notification in less than 1 second to get a job. So they might get like 3 a month. So my idea was like, if they're already willing to do this for $38 and they can't get any kind of consistent work, if I like took out the middleman, I could probably offer them more consistent work at a lower price and get that cost way down. Because originally I thought my back was going to take a lot longer to heal. So I was just really trying to think of a way to get that cost down. And so what I did was I had made an app, like a web app, where I have a list of employees, or I guess gig workers, not employees, and a list of tasks. And so as soon as I post a task, it sends out a text message to all of them automatically with a link to accept the job. And it has information about the location and the time and how much they would get paid. And the first person to click on the link then gets the job, basically. And so my idea was that I could probably get that cost down from $52 to $30 or maybe even less by having like a list of like 10 or 20 people that were competing for that job, knowing that they could get more jobs consistently than they could with the other apps. And so if you break down the numbers, say you're doing, to make it easy, like 40 couches a month, like 10 a week, and say you're like me and you hurt your back or you're just trying to outsource it. It doesn't have to be because you hurt your back, obviously, but just say you're trying to outsource it so you can just focus on sourcing and marketing. If you did 40 couch flips in a month, that's 40 deliveries and 40 pickups. That's 80 tasks at $50 a task. That's $4,000. If you could get that to $25, you've saved half of the money, which is $2,000. So it can definitely drive savings. And I haven't even really perfected it yet or even used it a ton yet, but it's pretty straightforward. So I think that we can probably get it in the neighborhood of $25 to $30 for those tasks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the difference between an employee or a flipper and a gig worker is that a gig worker you're bringing in for a discrete task. It's like delivery from point A to point B, delivery from point B to point C, or it could be something discrete like cleaning. You bring in someone just to clean a couch. It's already set up somewhere. You can clean it. You could bring in a photographer. You could bring in someone to list your couches as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole thing there is that they don't see the entire system that they're a part of. They're just providing labor to help that machine move forward from like one point to another.
Right.
So there's less knowledge required, less training required. Now, how do you make sure that the gig workers still operate according to a quality standard? So, for example, like if they're picking up a couch, they represent you and your business, and they're going to interact with the person selling the couch. Maybe they have to get the couch out of their home, and maybe they have to inspect the couch as well. So there's a little bit of training, even though they're not fully immersed in your business like an employee would be.
Right.
So how do you make sure that they operate according to how your business operates?
So just from our perspective, the way we're doing it, and obviously other people might do it differently, but all of the people on my list so far are people that I've already worked with. So they kind of already know just for how we're doing it. And also I was sending out the full-time employee or one of the guys that's been with us a lot to be there also. So everyone involved, at least from how we're doing it, already knows how to do the job correctly. But I guess you could do some kind of, just whenever they sign up to be an employee, you could send them some kind of onboarding video or document that just goes over and outlines how to do the job, which we might do in the future if we get strangers involved.
So here, I have a suggestion.
Okay.
So we were just talking about this. If you want to build a business and scale it, you need systems, you need documentation, you need your processes to be written down. That's level one.
Yeah.
Level one is you write down your processes and you train your employees on the processes. The next level is to bake that process into your technology.
Okay.
So for example, when the gig worker gets the job, it tells him a little bit about the job and then he accepts it. But it can also give him a checklist, which is like when you're on site to do this pickup, here's like how we operate, and here are the things that you need to inspect for. Here's our process for handling cash. And one by one, as they go execute that pickup, they're checking off that list.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And in order for them to complete the job or complete the pickup, they need to go through the app and follow that process.
Okay.
So it removes the need to do like as much training, although you should still train, because it's reinforced every step of the way, right? Because in the other world, you train them once or maybe twice, and you sort of expect them to carry on that knowledge. But people are fallible; they forget, they make mistakes, and so if you design it into your technology, then it makes it harder to escape, right?
Right.
It's if they want to complete the job, they have to follow these rules, and that's what technology is really good for.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's probably a feature that you can add to your roadmap.
Yeah, I'd have to talk to the developer, but that doesn't seem like it'd be super hard to make.
The other question I have is how are you finding your gig labor pool?
So, like I said, so far it's just been people that I already know, but in the future, I'll probably have to test some things and see if it's easier to use Indeed or Google Ads. But my guess is Google Ads will be cheaper because Indeed costs like $22 per application, and you can kind of fudge the system by like talking to them and then within 3 days getting them on board and then rejecting them even though you kept them. But I don't want to do that over and over and have to like do everything super fast. So I will probably split test Google Ads versus using Indeed and see if it's cheaper. And then probably, since they're strangers, if they want to be involved in it, they'll probably have to pay for their own background check because that's how the other apps work anyway. Like it wouldn't be anything out of the norm to have them pay for their own background check because it would start getting kind of expensive if I background checked, 30 people, 20 people.
So, other than using this app for your own business, which you've already
Mm-hmm.
started to do, you think that this can be marketed to other flippers, right? And if they're already using gig labor, here's a way to cut down on costs, cut out the platform. But I think you're going to hit a fork in the road, right? It's either they already have a gig workforce that they need to manage, in which case they can buy your software and they can use it to manage their workforce. It's a workforce management tool.
Yeah.
But that's not most flippers.
It's going to be building the workforce. It's probably the bigger issue.
Right. So it's like a smaller pool of flippers that can use your tool because you can only market it to the people that already have their own workforce to send out the messages to. On the other side, you bring them the workforce. So you find a list of gig workers in a given city, and you probably want to launch city by city. So like if you have 100 flippers, 100 gig workers in Dallas, now you can market that workforce to any flipper in Dallas, and it's like, hey, we already have gig workers ready to go on the platform. So you launch city by city, right? But then you become the platform.
Yeah.
So now you're a GoShare or you're a Dolly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's a choice you can make, right? Do I want to become GoShare and Dolly? But now you have to take, a higher fee. Now you have to take a fee out of every transaction, just like GoShare or Dolly does. Or maybe you do like a subscription model. Yeah, unlimited access to the platform, and the pricing is a little bit better. But then your technology is only differentiated based on pricing.
True.
And this is generally not where you want to be when you're building a software company. It just creates a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
So, I'll give you an example with Ivy Flip. There are, I think, like 4 or 5 competitors to Ivy Flip. And, when I look at how some of those companies have positioned themselves, it's all about price.
Right.
Right? They're like, we're cheaper. And okay, that's one way to differentiate yourself, but I know what it costs to operate my business. It's not cheap. We've had 3 full-time engineers on staff for a year.
Yeah.
And, engineering salaries are expensive, right? I've invested, let's say, $250,000 just in salary costs to build the app to the point that it is today. If I'm making $100 a month per flipper, that's going to get me nowhere. And in fact, Ivy as a business is still not profitable today based on the investments that we've made and are continuing to make. So you basically you're not generating enough revenue to actually build your business and build better technology, which is where you're going to get better differentiation. So the pricing has to make sense, right? Now, so whatever it is, like the pricing has to make sense for you and your customer. Because if you're priced the same as GoShare or Dolly, is there enough of an incentive for them to switch to using you? And if you're priced too low, do you have enough revenue to make this business worthwhile? and be able to continue to invest and develop the technology. It's a question you'll run into. My advice to you, you want to bake your differentiation into the technology itself. So you shouldn't differentiate just by saying, hey, we're cheaper than GoShare or Dolly. You say, hey, we've built a gig labor platform that is specific to the needs of a couch flipper. All aspects of labor that you potentially want to outsource to someone else, we have those people. We've trained those people on how the couch flipping business operates. And I gave you the example of the checklist. When they use the app, the workflow is baked in.
Yeah.
Now it's not just a matter of pricing. The technology itself fits the needs of your market.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, you're at a fork in the road, right? If you decide to take this to market and find customers, sell this to couch flippers, you're either going to need to find the people that already have the workforce, or, like are willing to build that workforce themselves, like go find gig workers in their area to get onto their software tool so they can manage them, and you sell a software subscription like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or you move more in the direction of a platform.
Yeah. I guess at that point, it just depends how much time I want to put into it, because the former is obviously going to be way easier. I could almost do that right now just with how it is. I would just have to make it where they can create their own account and have their own dashboard, which would not be hard. But then it's probably a lot less lucrative that way. But if I can create a platform where they have a bunch of people that have knowledge of couch flipping to do these niche tasks on demand for cheaper than GoShare or Dolly charges, like that's obviously a lot more valuable. So I guess it just depends where I want to put my time, since I'm still flipping full time and about to buy another business. So
There you go.
Tough
I think you answered your own question there.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
And I think that's the right way to do it, right? Like this fork in the road, you're not necessarily at yet. You don't have this problem yet. You don't have to solve this problem yet. It's a problem that you have to solve if you want to scale. So what you should do in the short term is exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Right now it's easy. It's casual. You built it for your own needs. There are probably some other people out there that have a similar need. Maybe this podcast can help you, connect to those people. So anyone who's, listening and interested, I'll include Collin's contact information in the description of this video. You can reach out to him directly. But yeah, there are probably people out there that have the same problem. Why don't you go find 5, 10 of them and get them to pay for access to the tool? Yeah. And then you don't have to do much because you're not focused on growing the business. But at the same time, you're getting reps in. Yeah. You're onboarding customers. You're seeing how they use it. You're kind of getting a better sense of what the opportunity is. And from that standpoint, it's easier to make a decision than it is today because you have more information. Yeah, definitely. This is one of the most important lessons I've learned as an entrepreneur is how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Yeah. Right? As an entrepreneur, you need a vision. You need a sense of like where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years. What is your company going to do? What value is it going to create in society? Where are you headed? You have to have that long-term vision, right? But you can't spend so much of your time focusing on the future that you forget about what's right in front of you, especially in the early days. If you're a big corporation, lots of employees and lots of resources, it's much more about that vision and your ability to articulate that vision, get people to buy into it. But when you're just starting out, you have to spend maybe about 5% of your time thinking about that future, and then 95% of your time thinking about what's right in front of you today. The exception being if you're trying to raise money. And if you're trying to raise money, well, you have to go to venture capitalists or angel investors. And if you have nothing today, then actually all you have to do, like all you can do really, is pitch your vision. Yeah. Show enough traction on the road to achieving that vision that they feel some semblance of confidence that you're the one to go make that vision come true. So it's a little bit different, right? If you're bootstrapping, like as you are, then focus on what's immediately in front of you and just try to get some reps in, right? Take what you have, sell it. Start doing that today. You'll get really valuable data and information from every single customer that you bring on in those early days, and give them a price incentive, right? They're just starting out, you're just starting out, and so maybe the technology isn't where it needs to be at this point necessarily. And if you give them a price incentive, they'll be more understanding of that, and they'll work with you as sort of like your beta testers. Yeah. This is actually the same thing that we did when we started going to market. Our very first customer, he gets our sourcing tool for $50 a month. Oh, wow. Yeah. because we launched the tool November 8th, 2022, almost exactly a year, and he was our first customer, November 8th, 2022.
Oh wow.
And so, Jason, if you're listening to this podcast, shout out to you. Thanks for hopping on board. And he's given us like constantly, messages me on Facebook. Hey, Charles, here's an idea. Here's something I wish was different about the app. And we get lots of really good feedback from him. So it's been worth, the price incentive that we gave him to get him on board.
Makes sense. So you think I should start with a low price, like a really low price that's like almost nothing, so that just to get them on board and then give me feedback and then just keep iterating and then raising the prices, there's more demand?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Because if you charge a high price out of the gate, then people expect a more established product and they're not going to be as forgiving. So it gives you an opportunity to work out the kinks because you don't know what that's going to look like until you put it into the hands of other people, what their needs might be. It works for you, but will it work for other people? So that's one question you have to answer. But the other thing, and this is probably the more important point, is that you want to make your first customer successful. And if they're successful, they'll do the marketing for you. It's working for them. Now give me a testimonial. Give me a case study. Give me a referral.
Yeah.
It'll, and like maybe I give you a price, a cash incentive to give me that referral. But it's your customers that actually build your business for you.
Makes sense.
I'll give you an example. I've had a couple people reach out to me about jobs. And actually, I would love to recruit more from our pool of customers because I think flippers are hard workers. And they want opportunity, and I'd like to be in a position where I can give more people those opportunities. But anyhow, the one that stuck is this guy. He reached out to do marketing. He's like, "Hey, I'm doing marketing services, and like all I want from you is I'm going to do some work for free, and if you like the work, give me a testimonial."
Okay.
I was like, okay. All right, let's try it out. I needed some videos edited, and so I tossed him a couple videos that I needed edited. He turned them around quickly, did a great job, and now he does all of our video editing, and we pay him. And if he asked me for a referral, hey, or like a review or a testimonial, you got it. And so you need something to point to, right? When people when you don't have that, you're just getting started. It's like, how do you get the jobs? Well, you got to put in the work and you got to make other people successful, and then that will bring you more work. Now he can charge for what he's doing because I know what the quality is, and other people will hire him too because now he has like case studies. Here's what I did. And so that approach is really important, I think. And not just, and this is with any business, right? It's maybe the need is not as great for a couch flipping business in the early days because it's a little bit more transactional. But if you want to grow your flipping business, right, like you need loyal customers. You need people that have had positive interactions with your brand. They got value. They love the process, and that's really what carries you into the future. And that's what has longevity. It's how you treat your customers, the value that you can deliver to them.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think something like the tool that I'm working on might be worth?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
It really, the way I would think about it, do the math, right? Like you just did, which is like, let's say you're flipping 40 couches, that's like 80 trips back and forth, $50 a trip, $4,000 a month, and whatever they're spending, the idea is that with your tool, they save time and money. That's why people are buying your technology, and that's how you should do your pricing. It's based on the value to them.
Yeah. I also thought about pricing it kind of similar to I remember what sold me to get Ivy Flip is when you said, if you flip one extra couch, it pays for itself. If you think about flipping, it's kind of a lot of times you got to be the first one to get to the couch.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, and if they can't help you put it in your truck, somebody else has to come. Well, maybe you don't have a friend that's off work at this hour of the day. The app would give you access to someone that could come on demand for less than GoShare. And now you got an extra couch that you might not have got otherwise. I don't know if it would be quite worth as much as $300, but maybe $50 or something.
Maybe more. Actually, you made a great point. Right? Because the point I just made is that the way you could do your pricing is based on cost savings. So it's like you're already doing this, and we can save you this much money if you use our tool instead. But what you're doing with what you just said you're pitching the vision, you're pitching the dream. And this is actually more powerful, right? So like I was saying earlier, every flipper that I talk to, they want to automate and scale their business. Everyone wants to do it. No one knows how. Some people do. It's like 3-5% of people that are able to remove themselves from working in their business to working on their business. It's a very small percentage of flippers that are actually able to do this. Everybody wants to do it. And if you are going to be able to do it, you need to bring other people in to your business. Something as simple as pickup and delivery is a constraint. You only have so many hours in the day to be able to drive around Dallas and pick up couches.
Yeah.
And so if you want to go from flipping 20 to 30 to 40, 50 to 100 and beyond, you need some labor solution that can replace your own effort in the business. And if you can help people with that, and you have a system and you have a technology that enables them to scale, now you're not pitching, oh, well, you're doing this, I can save you, $2,000 on labor costs. It's like, you're doing this in your business, you're like stuck at 30 couches a month. You want to take things to the next level and you want to get yourself out of doing that work, I can help you.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, that does seem like a better pitch.
That's a good pitch. That's a good pitch, right? So I wouldn't, and like what I'd say is like, today maybe you sell it for $50, $100,
Yeah.
whatever. Doesn't matter, because if you make a little bit of money doing this, is still not your main thing right now. You got your flipping business, especially if you're going to acquire another flipping business. Now you have debt.
Yeah.
Like you got to focus on that. So this sort of has to be a side thing, but give it the room to grow, and maybe it becomes more worthwhile and more interesting, and something that deserves more of your focus and attention moving on into the future.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely something I'm going to keep as a side project for now, but we'll see where it goes. Because I think there's potential there. And I think depending on how I do it, there might be potential for even like businesses beyond couch flipping, because there's a lot of people that just need on demand labor. And the current solutions are pretty pricey and they're taking a huge cut. So I think the subscription based pricing is more attractive to somebody that needs consistent labor, rather than, because I think GoShare and Dolly I think they're really marketed towards like a family that needs something moved. Like they bought a couch from somebody else, but they don't have a truck or something along those lines.
Yeah. I would just encourage you, don't worry about the pricing so much right now.
Right. Yeah.
Worry about the problem that you are solving. The pricing will answer itself, or you'll figure out how to price it as you have more interactions with your customers and you understand the value that you're delivering. And pricing, don't get me wrong, pricing strategy is important. It's just not the problem that you need to solve today.
Right.
This is my general approach, right? I try not to think about all the things that could go wrong and all the problems that need to be fixed in the future. I worry about the problems that are in front of me.
Right.
I often tell my team, don't solve problems that don't exist yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So figure out how, what you need to do to prioritize, and it's just taking these baby steps, right? One foot in front of the other. Just focus on what's immediately in front of you and what you can do to get this into the market. It's all about those little actionable steps. That's it.
Yeah. I think the first step is just, I guess, like productizing it where people can sign up for their own account and have their own version of it. So I'll have to talk to the developer, but that should take like a few days if I had to guess.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just need a version, like a beta version that they can use, like have their own login, etc. And then after that, it's just go sell it. You can do that. Like you have contacts. Sure, like people, like I would probably start in Dallas because you can sort of bring the labor pool to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd probably start in Dallas, find a couple other flippers in Dallas. Any Dallas guys watching this podcast, Collin's your guy. You need some people to help you cleaning, delivery, whatever. He's got the technology, he's got the labor pool, and yeah, see where it goes. And it's really interesting to me how this whole industry is evolving. And I've only been a part of this for a year now, but I've seen multiple entrepreneurs that have started flipping and gotten an idea of new solutions or new technology that they could build and introduce to this market, or new concepts that create opportunities for other people and are pushing the entire industry forward. So you're not the first person I've talked to with an idea like this, and technology, like not this technology specifically, but like some concept that could be used by other flippers. And we're going to see more and more of that. And this is really fruitful ground for entrepreneurs. That's really what I like about being in this market. Is everyone's working hard, everyone's hustling, and everyone has an ambition to do better for themselves and their family. And it's not just I'm going to build a flipping business and make it the biggest flip. It's like services or a technology that serve this market as well.
Definitely, definitely.
Okay, cool. Well, Colin, I really appreciate you hopping on CouchPod, talking about your flipping business and the new technology that you're developing. I really hope you the best as you get out there into the market. And let's do a follow up in a couple months, and I'll see what progress you've made. And hopefully, this conversation was helpful to you as well.
Yeah, man. It's always great talking to you, Charles. And yeah, definitely we'll follow up in a couple of months.